He approached with an air of authority, certain he was in command. But when the pregnant woman he had shoved revealed herself to be the deputy chief's wife, his badge and his entire career hung precariously in the balance. The late afternoon sun still cast a warm glow on the asphalt as Officer Travis Kelton steered his cruiser into the parking lot of the Piggly Wiggly in Valdosta, Georgia. The dispatch call had been for a minor dispute, a routine Thursday affair. He anticipated a quick chat, a warning, and then a return to his patrol route. But as he stepped out, his gaze landed on a woman leaning against a silver SUV, one hand on the door, the other clutching a paper grocery bag. Her advanced pregnancy was unmistakable, her belly pressing against the pale blue fabric of her dress. This was Janelle Morris, though Kelton was yet to know her name. She was speaking with another woman a few feet away, and the tension between them was palpable. Kelton advanced with a brisk, no-nonsense stride, a posture that discouraged pleasantries. "What's the situation?" he demanded, the phrase more an order than a question. Janelle turned to face him, her voice level. "Sir, I'm just loading my groceries. That car," she indicated a dented sedan 2 spaces over, parked too close. "I simply asked them to back up so I could leave." The other woman, a white woman in her 50s, interjected. "She was making a scene. I was just parking." Kelton's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I'm not here to take sides. I need you to calm down," he said, fixing his gaze on Janelle. Her eyebrows arched. "I am calm," she replied. "You're speaking to me as if I've done something wrong. I just want to go home." It was then that his tone sharpened. "I am giving you a lawful order. Leave the premises now." Janelle's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're ordering me to leave a grocery store parking lot after paying for my food? Why?" Kelton moved closer, his shadow engulfing her. "Because you're causing a disturbance," he retorted. A few yards away, a man leaning on a shopping cart pulled out his phone and pressed record, a small red light blinking. "Man, this ain't right," he muttered under his breath. Janelle's voice remained steady, but a new edge had crept in. "Officer, I'm 8 months pregnant. I've done nothing illegal. I am not leaving until you explain why you're treating me this way." Kelton's nostrils flared. "Ma'am, I won't repeat myself." The witness's camera captured every detail. Kelton's hand shot out, pushing Janelle hard on the shoulder. Her body slammed against the SUV door, her grocery bag tilted, and an apple rolled across the pavement. The woman in the sedan gasped but said nothing. Janelle steadied herself against the car, one hand instinctively covering her belly. Her eyes widened not just from the physical contact but from the sheer audacity of it. "You just put your hands on me," she said, her voice a low, trembling whisper. Kelton looked around, suddenly conscious of the onlookers. "You were refusing to comply," he said, his voice louder as if volume could make it true. The man with the phone stepped closer. "Sir, I'm recording this," he stated. Kelton's eyes darted to the camera. "Fine. Make sure you get the whole thing," he said, squaring his shoulders, but a hint of uncertainty betrayed him. Janelle's breathing was ragged. She bent to retrieve the apple, then reconsidered. Her gaze locked with the officer's. "You have no idea who I am, do you?" Kelton smirked. "Doesn't matter. You follow orders just like everyone else." But the look she gave him made him pause. "You'll regret that," she said quietly before sliding into the SUV's driver's seat. The witness, Curtis Hanley, a 42-year-old mechanic, kept his phone up, panning from Kelton to Janelle as she started the engine. He could feel the charged air, a mix of disbelief and indignation from those who had witnessed the shove. Kelton remained rooted to the spot, his cruiser idling behind him. His radio crackled, but he made no move to answer. For the first time all day he felt a faint flicker of doubt. The real storm, however, was still minutes away. "Ma'am, you all right?" Curtis called out through her window. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice was strained. "But thank you." Curtis briefly angled his phone down, checking the screen. The clip was already 2 minutes long, more than enough to show what had happened from the moment Kelton raised his voice to the shove. He knew without this footage her side of the story might never be believed. Kelton turned to him. "Sir, I need you to put that phone away." Curtis didn't move. "I think I'll keep it for my records. That's evidence in an investigation." "I can take it," Kelton said, stepping toward him. Curtis backed away, his free hand raised. "You're not taking anything from me." I saw what you did and so did the whole parking lot. The tension was thick enough to draw stares from passers-by. A mother pulled her child toward their car, and a man loading bottled water slowed his movements to listen. Sir, I'm asking you to cooperate, Kelton insisted, his voice more controlled but still holding an edge. Curtis tilted his head, his voice steady. And I'm telling you, you put your hands on a pregnant woman for no reason. That's not just going away because you tell me to stop filming. For a few beats, neither man moved. Then Kelton exhaled sharply, turned on his heel and returned to his cruiser. Curtis waited until the officer was gone before pressing the stop button. Man, this is gonna blow up, he muttered to himself. As Janelle drove away, she glanced in her rearview mirror. Her eyes met Curtis's for a second, a silent exchange of understanding. She gave him the faintest nod of thanks before disappearing from the lot. Curtis pocketed his phone and got into his car, the weight of what he'd just seen heavy in his chest. Back in his car, he rewatched the footage twice. Every detail was there. The shove, Janelle's stagger, the rolling apple, Kelton's dismissive stance. He considered sending it to a friend at the local news station but first wanted Janelle's permission. He called out to a man loading groceries nearby. Hey, you know that lady? The pregnant one. The man shook his head. Never seen her. Curtis hesitated. He didn't want to post the video without context, but he also knew time was critical. These things could disappear if he waited too long. He pulled out of the lot, heading to a nearby gas station for better signal. He needed a minute to think and a clear connection to send the clip to someone who could make a difference. At the station, he parked in the shade and scrolled through his contacts. His cousin, Cheryl, was a paralegal. She would know what to do. Cheryl, I've got something you need to see, he said when she answered. What is it? She asked. A video from the Piggly Wiggly parking lot. A cop shoved a pregnant woman for no reason. The way he talked to her, it's bad. There was a pause. Send it now. Curtis hit send. Less than a minute later, his phone rang. Kurt, do you have any idea who that is? Her voice was sharp. No, should I? That's Janelle Morris. Her husband is the deputy police chief. Curtis blinked. You're serious? Dead serious. If this gets out, it's going to be everywhere. Curtis leaned back in his seat, staring at the steering wheel. Then maybe it should get out. But he had no idea how quickly that decision would change the lives of everyone involved. By the time Janelle pulled into the driveway of her brick home, her hands were shaking. The short drive had been long enough for her mind to replay the shove over and over. The suddenness, the jolt, the shock on the strangers' faces. She killed the engine and sat for a moment, breathing slowly. The house smelled faintly of roasted chicken. Raymond, her husband, had started dinner before leaving for his late shift. She set the groceries on the counter, her hands moving automatically, her thoughts elsewhere. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unfamiliar number. Hey, this is Curtis, the guy from the parking lot. I've got the video. We need to talk. Janelle stared at the message, her stomach clenching. She hadn't even considered that someone might be filming. Her first instinct was to delete it and focus on calming down, but curiosity and a sense of something bigger made her type back. Call me. The phone rang less than a minute later. Janelle. Curtis's voice was low, cautious. Yes, you were the man with the phone. Yeah. I got the whole thing from the moment he started raising his voice to when he shoved you. She closed her eyes. I can't believe that happened. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I know, Curtis said. That's why I recorded it. But listen, my cousin recognized you. Said you're married to Deputy Chief Raymond Morris. Yes, she said quietly. That's my husband. Curtis let out a low whistle. Well then this is about to get real messy real fast. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Janelle said, send me the video please. Seconds later the clip appeared. Watching it was worse than she expected. Seeing herself flinch, the officer's hand making contact, her body rocking against the SUV door. Her throat tightened. Do you want me to post it? Curtis asked. Or would you rather I don't? Janelle thought of Raymond still at work, completely unaware. She thought of the politics within the department, the thin blue line that often meant officers protected their own. Post it, she said finally. Don't put my name in it yet. Just let people see what happened first. Curtis hesitated. All right. But once it's up, it's out of my hands. After the call, Janelle went to the living room, lowering herself onto the couch. Her hand rested on her belly, feeling the faint kicks. "We're okay," she whispered to her unborn daughter. "We're okay." But deep down she knew things were about to ignite. Later that evening Raymond came home just before 9 p.m. He hung his jacket on the hook, kissed her forehead and asked about her day. She told him in fragmented pieces, starting with the parking lot argument, the officer's arrival and then the shove. Raymond's expression remained impassive until she played the video. He watched it twice without a word. "His name is Travis Kelton," Raymond said finally, his voice low but steady. "Been on the force 7 years. I've had to talk to him about his attitude before, but this..." He exhaled through his nose. "This is different." "What are you going to do?" Janelle asked. "I'm going to make some calls," he said, pulling his phone from his pocket. "And I'm going to make sure you're never treated like that again." She reached for his hand. "Raymond, it's not just me. You know that, right? If he can do this to me in broad daylight, pregnant, in front of witnesses, what do you think he's doing when no one's filming?" Raymond's jaw shifted slightly. "I know. And that's exactly why this won't get swept under the rug." As he stepped into the hallway to call the chief of police, Janelle sat back on the couch, listening to the low, urgent murmur of his voice. Her phone buzzed again. Curtis had sent her a link. The video was live on Facebook, posted less than 30 minutes ago, and it already had hundreds of shares. Comments were pouring in. "This is disgusting. I know her, she's the sweetest person you'll meet. He needs to be fired." Janelle's chest tightened. It was happening faster than she could have imagined. But the true shock would come when the video reached beyond Valdosta, to people who had no loyalty to protect Officer Kelton. By midnight, the clip had spread from Curtis's Facebook page to local community groups, then to Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The shaky 2-minute cell phone footage was enough to stop anyone mid-scroll. You could hear Kelton's voice, sharp, commanding, and dismissive, followed by the shove. You could see Janelle's startled reaction, her hand going to her belly, and the stunned silence of the bystanders. The comment sections were a mix of outrage, disbelief, and calls for immediate action. Strangers tagged news stations and civil rights groups. A popular Atlanta-based activist page reposted the clip with the caption, "Pregnant woman shoved by Valdosta police officer. Where's the accountability?" That post alone garnered over 50,000 views in the first hour. Curtis sat in his living room, his phone buzzing with non-stop messages from friends, family, and strangers. Some wanted more details. Some thanked him for filming. Others warned him to be careful. Meanwhile, across town, Janelle lay in bed, unable to sleep. Raymond was in his home office handling calls. The murmur of his voice carried faintly down the hallway. Her phone lit up every few seconds with notifications. She opened Instagram and was stunned to see her own face in the video thumbnail on an account she'd never followed. She tapped on the post. Thousands of comments scrolled past, most supportive, some furious, a few dismissive, accusing her of making it about race or not complying. She closed the app and set the phone face down. In the police department's main office, Night Shift Sergeant Dennis Rowe was on his third cup of coffee when his desk phone rang. The voice on the other end was short and clipped. "Have you seen the video?" Rowe hadn't. 10 seconds later, a link hit his inbox. He pressed play, watching silently. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his forehead. He'd worked with Kelton for years and knew his temper, but he had never imagined something this blatant would end up online. Rowe sent the link up the chain to the chief, who was already on a late-night call with Raymond. At 12 a.m., the department's official Facebook page posted a statement. "We are aware of a video circulating on social media involving an interaction between one of our officers and a member of the public. The matter is under review. Further comment will be provided when available." The post was flooded with comments within minutes, most demanding Kelton's suspension, others mocking the department's vague language. Raymond returned to the bedroom around 1 a.m., his shoulders heavy. "The chief has seen it. Internal Affairs is opening an investigation first thing in the morning." Janelle looked at him. "What does that mean for Kelton?" "For now, administrative leave. But with the way this is spreading, it could be more." She searched his face for any sign of hesitation, but there was none. "Raymond, you know people are going to say you're just doing this because I'm your wife." He nodded slowly. "They can say what they want. If it wasn't you, if it was anyone else in that video, I'd want the same thing done." Across the city, Kelton himself had already seen the video. A fellow officer had sent it to him with the message, "It's everywhere, man." Sitting at his kitchen table, Kelton replayed it 3 times. He cursed under his breath, tossed his phone aside, then picked it up again. Each time he watched, the shove looked worse than he remembered. His own voice sounded harsher. His girlfriend Tanya leaned against the doorway. "That's bad, Trav, real bad." "They don't know the whole story," he muttered. "Doesn't matter," she said. "That video is all anyone's going to care about now." He stared at the screen one last time before locking the phone. "I'll handle it," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. But handling it wouldn't be his choice anymore. The public had taken control of the narrative. By 7 a.m., the Valdosta Police Department was a hornet's nest. Phones rang non-stop. Reporters were camped outside, and the chief's inbox was stacked with requests for comment. Officers arriving for the morning shift walked through the doors with their heads down, avoiding eye contact with the cameras. Inside, Chief Harold Bowers sat at a long conference table with Raymond Morris and 2 members of Internal Affairs. The video played on a large screen, soundless. Just the image of Kelton stepping into Janelle's space, his hand making contact, her body jolting against the SUV. Even without audio, the aggression was undeniable. When the clip ended, the room was quiet except for the faint hum of the projector. "I don't see how we defend this," Bowers said finally. 7 years on the job or not, that shove is going to read the same to every person who watches it. Raymond's voice was calm but direct. "You're right. And if we pretend it's something it's not, this department's credibility is done." One of the internal affairs officers, a woman named Kelly Ruiz, spoke next. "We've pulled his personnel file. He's had 3 prior complaints for excessive force, none of them sustained, but 2 involved aggressive behavior toward women." Bowers exhaled through his nose. "This isn't a pattern we can ignore anymore." Raymond's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen, a text from Janelle, "News vans outside the house." He clenched his jaw, slipped the phone face down and kept listening. Bowers turned to him. "Raymond, I'm going to be blunt. I can't have you involved in the official investigation. It's a conflict of interest." "I understand," Raymond said. "But off the record I'll tell you, if we don't act quickly this will spread beyond us. The longer we drag our feet, the worse it looks." At 9 a.m. Kelton was called into the station. He walked past the cameras without speaking, hands in his pockets, his face pale. In the chief's office, he stood across the desk as Bowers informed him he'd be placed on paid administrative leave pending the investigation. "Paid leave. That's it." Kelton's voice was flat. "For now," Bowers said. "But the evidence isn't in your favor, and with the public pressure, things could change fast." Raymond stood against the wall, silent. Kelton's eyes flicked toward him. "This about your wife?" he asked. Raymond's tone didn't rise. "This is about your actions. You put your hands on a pregnant woman in a grocery store parking lot, Travis. My wife or not, that's inexcusable." Kelton's mouth twitched, but he said nothing. He signed the paperwork, left his badge and gun on the desk and walked out. In the hallway, officers avoided his gaze. He'd been one of them for years, but in this moment he was radioactive. By noon, the department issued a second public statement. "Officer Travis Kelton has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal affairs investigation into an incident involving a member of the public. We take all allegations of misconduct seriously and will release further details as the investigation proceeds." The statement didn't name Janelle, but the comments online filled in the blanks instantly. Back at home, Janelle watched it all unfold from the living room couch. Her phone buzzed with calls from relatives, neighbors, and even a woman she hadn't spoken to since high school. The message was always the same. "We saw the video. We're with you." Raymond returned home briefly around lunchtime, looking worn. "They've got him off the street," he said. "But protests are already being planned. This is bigger than just the department now." Janelle nodded slowly. "Good. Maybe it's about time." But as the community's anger grew, so did the risk that the situation could spiral beyond anyone's control. By the next morning, the parking lot of the Valdosta Police Department looked more like a rally site than a government building. Dozens of residents had gathered, holding hand-painted signs, "Justice for Janelle, protect mothers, not abusers, fire Kelton now." The crowd grew steadily throughout the day. The sound of chanting, "No justice, no peace," echoed off the brick storefronts, mixing with the occasional blare of car horns from passing drivers showing support. Janelle sat in the passenger seat of her friend Camille's car, parked across the street. She hadn't planned to attend, but she wanted to see it for herself. "They're out here for you," Camille said, gesturing toward the signs. Janelle's throat tightened. "I didn't ask for any of this," she murmured. "Doesn't matter. It's not just about you anymore." Across the street, Curtis stood near the front, live streaming on his phone. People recognized him from the video, shaking his hand and hugging him. He kept repeating, "I just did what anybody should have done." The protest wasn't without tension. A few counter-protesters showed up, waving thin blue line flags and shouting that Kelton was being railroaded. One man with a bullhorn yelled, "She should have complied," but was quickly drowned out by the chants of the larger group. Inside the station, the blinds were drawn. Officers moved through the halls with tight expressions. They could hear the crowd outside and knew every word was aimed at them as much as at Kelton. Raymond stood in the lobby with two other officers, arms folded. "We can't ignore this," he said to the sergeant on duty. The sergeant shrugged. "We're not ignoring it. We're just not engaging." Raymond glanced toward the glass doors. "If we don't address it head-on, it's going to keep growing." Meanwhile, at Kelton's small house, the blinds were closed tight. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the muted TV showing live coverage of the protests. His phone buzzed with messages, some supportive, others from people he hadn't spoken to in years, telling him to do the right thing and resign. Tanya set a cup of coffee in front of him. "You see this? It's not dying down," she said. "I see it," he muttered. "They don't know the whole story." "They don't care about the story," she said. "They care about what they saw on that video." Kelton rubbed his temples. It was one push. "She's fine. This is getting blown way out of," Tanya cut him off. "Trav, she's pregnant. You shoved a pregnant woman on camera. How do you think that's going to play?" He didn't answer. Back at the protest, a local pastor stepped up to a makeshift podium, a wooden crate with a microphone clipped to it. His voice boomed over the crowd. "We are here because we demand accountability. If the department will not protect our mothers and daughters, then we will make sure the world knows what is happening in Valdosta." The crowd roared. Janelle felt a swell of emotion. She didn't want the spotlight, but she couldn't deny the power of what she was seeing. "You thinking about speaking?" Camille asked. Janelle shook her head. "Not yet. But maybe soon." As the sun set, the crowd began to thin, but the energy didn't fade. People were already planning the next day's demonstration, sharing updates on social media, and tagging national civil rights organizations. Curtis ended his livestream and checked his notifications. A message from a major news network sat at the top. "We'd like to interview you about the incident. Please call us." He looked up at the empty crate. "This is just the start," he said quietly to himself. But the bigger the movement grew, the more the pressure mounted on the department to deliver answers fast. By Monday morning, Internal Affairs had turned a corner office into their temporary war room. Files, interview transcripts, and printouts of social media posts were spread across a long table. Two investigators, Kelly Ruiz and her partner Tom Beasley, were in the thick of it. Kelly clicked the remote, replaying the body cam footage from Kelton's uniform. The video started mid-conversation, his voice sharp, ordering Janelle to leave. The shove happened exactly as it did in Curtis's clip. No angle could soften the impact. Tom leaned back in his chair. No justification on tape. She wasn't threatening, wasn't resisting. He went straight to physical contact. Kelly nodded. "And the fact that the bystander's video matches perfectly? It's airtight." The next step was interviewing everyone involved. Janelle came in first, escorted by Raymond but seated alone with the investigators. Kelly kept her tone gentle. "Mrs. Morris, can you walk us through what happened?" Janelle recounted the events in detail. "I asked him why I was being told to leave and he wouldn't give me a reason," she said. "Then he shoved me. I'm 8 months pregnant. If I'd fallen, I could have lost my baby." Tom scribbled notes. "Were you aware anyone was filming?" "I saw a man with a phone after it happened, but I didn't realize he'd captured the whole thing." After she left, they brought in Curtis. He was direct, almost blunt. "If I hadn't filmed it, you know how this would have gone," he said. "She'd have a complaint on file and his word would outweigh hers. I've seen it too many times." Kelly didn't dispute it. Did Officer Kelton say anything to you after the incident? Curtis recounted the exchange. Kelton telling him to stop filming, threatening to take the phone. Did you feel pressured or intimidated? Kelly asked. Yeah. But I wasn't about to back down. Kelton's interview came last. He entered in plain clothes, his badge and weapon already turned in. His posture was rigid, jaw set. Kelly started simply. Why did you order Mrs. Morris to leave the parking lot? She was causing a scene, Kelton said, loud and confrontational. People were staring. Tom leaned forward. We've reviewed the footage. She wasn't shouting or threatening anyone. Kelton's eyes flicked between them. Look, sometimes you've got to control the situation before it gets worse. Control it how? Kelly asked. By making sure people comply. She didn't. Kelly paused. So you pushed her. I guided her back, he said quickly. Tom clicked a button and the shove played on the monitor. The sound of Janelle's body hitting the SUV door filled the room. Kelton's shoulders stiffened. That's not a guide, officer, Kelly said evenly. Kelton didn't answer. Outside, Raymond waited in the hallway. He could hear muffled voices but not the words. His phone vibrated again, a text from Janelle. They're calling from Good Morning America. By the end of the day, Kelly and Tom had compiled their preliminary findings. Excessive force, conduct unbecoming and failure to de-escalate. They also included the prior complaints. In the chief's office, Kelly laid the folder on his desk. The evidence is overwhelming. We recommend termination. Bowers rubbed his temples. Public opinion's already decided, but if we move too fast, Kelton's union will fight it. I need this airtight. Raymond spoke for the first time since walking in. It is airtight. Bowers looked at him. You know we can't make this about you. It's not about me, Raymond said. It's about an officer who put his hands on a pregnant woman without cause. If that's not enough for termination, what is? Bowers didn't answer immediately. He just closed the folder as if its weight alone made the decision inevitable. Kelton had never been the type to sit still, but in the days following his suspension, his small living room began to feel like a prison. He spent most of his time pacing, occasionally glancing out the blinds. Tanya kept telling him to lay low, but the constant stream of notifications on his phone made that impossible. News channels had his face plastered across headlines about the Valdosta officer who shoved a pregnant woman. Late one night, he sat alone at the table with a glass of whiskey, scrolling through a news site's comments. Coward, thug with a badge, should never wear a uniform again. Every insult cut deeper than he expected. He told himself they didn't know the whole story, but that excuse felt weaker with each passing day. Tanya walked in. You're still up. Couldn't sleep, he muttered. Trav, you've got to stop reading that stuff. It's not going to help. He didn't look at her. You think I'm the bad guy too? She hesitated. I think you made a bad choice and now the whole world's watching it over and over. Kelton stared at the glass in his hand. I've been on the job 7 years. I've been in worse situations. But this was different, Tanya finished. Because it was pointless. You could have just walked away. He didn't respond, but her words settled heavily in his chest. The next morning he drove to his parents' place. His mother, a retired schoolteacher, answered the door and hugged him, but there was a stiffness to it. Your father's in the den, she said quietly. Kelton found him in his recliner, the TV muted on a news channel showing footage from the protests. You've put us in a tough spot, son, his father said, eyes fixed on the screen. Kelton tried to explain how he thought Janelle was escalating, how he'd wanted to maintain control. But his father cut him off. You pushed a pregnant woman, Travis. You're not going to talk your way out of what people saw with their own eyes. The words landed like a punch. His father had never spoken to him that way. That afternoon he drove to the grocery store where it all happened. He watched people come and go, normal life carrying on. For him everything had changed. His mind replayed the moment Janelle's eyes locked with his after the shove, the way she had said, "You'll regret that." Back then he dismissed it as empty words. Now it felt like a prophecy. Across town, Raymond sat in his office, fielding another call from a reporter. He'd declined every request so far, but the pressure was building. In private moments he thought about Kelton, not with sympathy but with a strange awareness that the man's life was unraveling in real time. At home, Janelle was feeling the strain too. The support was overwhelming, but so was the scrutiny. She found herself avoiding trips to the store, worried about being recognized or drawn into conversations she didn't want to have. Kelton's name was now trending and memes were circulating, using the incident as a symbol of police misconduct. His face had become shorthand for everything the protesters were angry about. One night, lying in bed, Kelton scrolled through his contacts and hovered over Raymond's name. For a brief moment he considered calling to explain, to apologize, to just say something human. But he couldn't bring himself to press the button. Instead he locked the phone, stared at the ceiling and let the weight of the silence settle in. But silence wouldn't protect him for long. The department was preparing to announce its decision, and once they did there would be no turning back. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Thursday. By 9:15 the parking lot was packed with reporters, camera crews and locals. The air buzzed with conversation. Inside, Chief Bowers stood behind a lectern. Raymond was in the back, arms crossed. Kelton sat in a small office down the hall with a union representative, unsure if he'd stay for the announcement or slip out quietly. At exactly 10 o'clock, Bowers stepped up to the microphone. "Good morning. After a thorough internal affairs investigation into the incident involving Officer Travis Kelton and Mrs. Janelle Morris, we have reached a conclusion. The investigation found that Officer Kelton violated department policy regarding the use of force, de-escalation procedures and conduct unbecoming of an officer. Effective immediately, Officer Kelton's employment with the Valdosta Police Department is terminated." Gasps rippled through the room. Outside, the announcement hit the crowd like a spark. Cheers erupted, signs waved higher and people hugged each other. Reporters began shouting questions. Will there be criminal charges? Has the officer apologized? What changes will be made? Bowers answered what he could, sidestepped what he couldn't and ended with, "We are committed to accountability and transparency. This incident does not reflect the values of our department." Raymond slipped out before the briefing ended. He walked to the small office where Kelton sat staring at the floor. "It's official," Raymond said. Kelton didn't look up. "Yeah. I heard." There was a long pause before Raymond added, "You could have avoided all of this with a conversation instead of a shove." Kelton finally raised his eyes. "You think I don't know that now? You knowing it now doesn't undo what you did," Raymond said, his tone flat but with an undercurrent of something heavier, not anger but disappointment. "If you've got anything to say to Janelle, say it. After today there won't be another chance." Kelton hesitated then nodded. "I'll talk to her." That afternoon, Janelle agreed to meet at the department's side entrance, away from the cameras. She arrived with Camille, who stayed in the car. Kelton was already there, looking smaller than she remembered. "Mrs. Morris," he began, his voice quieter than she'd ever heard it. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not because of all this," he gestured vaguely at the media and the protests, "but because I was wrong. I handled it badly. You didn't deserve that." Janelle looked at him for a long moment. "You could have hurt me. You could have hurt my baby. And you didn't even stop to think about that in the moment." "I know," Kelton said. "If I could go back I would." She shook her head. "You don't get to go back. But you can decide who you're going to be moving forward. I hope you make a better choice next time." Kelton nodded once, then turned and walked away without another word. That evening, the local news played the press conference highlights, intercut with footage of the protests. In her living room, Janelle sat beside Raymond, their hands clasped. "You did it," he said softly. "We all did," she replied. "Curtis, the people who showed up, everyone who spoke out. It took all of them." Outside, the protest had quieted, but the conversations continued online. People were still sharing the video, now accompanied by headlines about the firing. The incident had become more than a local story. It was part of a larger national dialogue about accountability. But for Janelle, the real victory wasn't the headlines. It was knowing that her voice and the voices of those who stood with her had made change happen in plain sight. In the weeks following Kelton's firing, Valdosta slowly returned to its usual rhythm. But something felt different. People who had never spoken to each other were greeting one another in the grocery store aisles, at gas pumps, in church parking lots, as if the community had collectively realized they shared more than they'd thought. For Janelle, life didn't snap back to normal. There were still whispers when she went out, strangers who recognized her from the video, some thanking her for her courage, others keeping their distance. She took it all in stride, focusing on her pregnancy. One Saturday afternoon she met Curtis at a small cafe downtown. He brought his daughter, a bright-eyed 11-year-old who looked at Janelle with a mix of awe and curiosity. "My dad says you're the reason people are listening now," the girl said. Janelle smiled. "Your dad's the reason people saw what happened. Without him, none of this would have gone anywhere." Curtis shrugged, sipping his coffee. "I just hit record. You're the one who stood your ground." They talked for over an hour. Before they left, Curtis leaned in slightly. "You know, some folks asked me if I'd do it again even if it meant trouble. I told them, yeah. Every time." Elsewhere in town, Kelton was keeping a low profile. He'd moved in with his older brother temporarily. Every now and then he'd catch a glimpse of his own face on a TV screen or phone. He didn't linger on it, but he couldn't ignore it either. The weight of what he'd done stayed with him. One evening he wrote a letter not to the department or the media but to himself. In it he detailed the choices he'd made, the shortcuts he'd taken, the times he'd let frustration dictate his actions. He didn't know if he'd ever show it to anyone, but writing it forced him to face truths he'd been dodging for years. Meanwhile, the department began implementing mandatory de-escalation training and revisiting its complaint review process. Raymond quietly pushed for these changes behind the scenes. At home, Janelle stood in the nursery folding tiny onesies. Raymond leaned in the doorway watching her. "You ready?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "As ready as I can be." He stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm proud of you. You didn't just protect yourself. You helped protect others who might have been next." Janelle's gaze dropped to the folded clothes. "It shouldn't take something like this to make people pay attention. But maybe it's worth it if it stops it from happening again." A few days later, a local church invited her to speak at a community forum on police accountability. She hesitated but ultimately agreed. Standing at the podium, she looked out at the crowd, neighbors, students, retirees, officers in plain clothes, and said, "I'm not here because I want attention. I'm here because what happened to me could happen to anyone. The only reason I'm standing here today is because someone chose to speak up, and a community chose to stand with me. We can't afford to be silent when we see wrong. Change doesn't start in a courtroom or at a press conference. It starts the moment someone says, 'This isn't right,' and then acts on it." The applause that followed wasn't loud or boisterous. It was steady, deliberate, the kind that lingers because it means something. As the meeting ended, Janelle felt a quiet certainty settle in her chest. What had begun in a grocery store parking lot with a shove had become a reminder to her town, and to anyone paying attention that respect, empathy, and accountability aren't just ideals. They're choices made in moments that matter.